Hi, it's the girl out there, right here with you. It's me, Cindy. And this week we are here with my very dear friend, Meredith. Hi, Meredith.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm so good. And I'm so excited that we are actually finally doing this. It has been,
It's been a long time in the making. We both lead very busy lives as single mamas and as educators and all the things that all the things that we love to do. So I'm so happy to make this time to sit down with you.
I know it. I'm excited because I'm going to share. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'll share a little bit about how we met and then how our journeys have arrived to this moment where we are now. And I want to hear all about where you're at. So Meredith and I met just up the hill from where I live now, and where Meredith, interestingly, where Meredith lives too. So we were arriving into are embarking into a journey of early childhood education, where we were both going to begin to teach. And that was what, over 20 years ago?
It was because my eldest is now almost 21 and I was just pregnant with her when we graduated. Amazing.
Oh gosh, so that's really a long time ago. And so that's where we were at Cap College. It was called Cap College at the time.
That's right.
And we had basically like our whole lives ahead of us. And we took those 2 years together and learned so much. And then we both went on. You went far away.
I've always had a bit of a wandering spirit, and being that my family's originally from New Zealand, always felt called to go back to that area of the world. And so, yeah, I've been back and forth between New Zealand and Australia and here, but for something about the North Shore is also home here in Vancouver. So,
Yes.
yes.
So we parted ways 20 some odd years ago after that. And then our lives both went into interesting ways because we had both met a boy at that time and had children and got married or did all the things that we did. And then our lives sort of unraveled in interesting ways. You had two girls. I had two boys,
Yes.
and both left relationships and then sort of came into this energy of ourselves. And it was like 4 or 5 years ago that we had a tie with a mutual friend, and
Yes.
and that's how we discovered that we were living about a block and a half away from each other.
And also coming into an understanding of how much more we were than just the teachers that we were in our early 20s, and all the hopes and dreams we had for our lives, the path that we thought we were on and the path that's ended up unfolding. I find that really fascinating,
No.
especially since it was my best friend of since grade 6 who brought us back together,
Yeah.
right? Unbeknownst to us, we'd already been living just a few blocks apart for years,
Yeah.
and magically it was the recommendation for me to find somebody who did Reiki,
Yes.
and that brought you back into my life, and I've been forever grateful for that, because together not only have we connected on so many different levels now, but we've created some beautiful things together, and we keep coming back together and supporting and fostering each other, which I think is so important in the world today as it begins to change and unfold. So
100%.
yeah.
And so let's talk about all the things that you are doing, and beginning with, what is the name of your business?
Okay, sure. Yeah, we were just chatting about this because for me, I'm a lover of words. That's one of my loves when it comes to teaching. And one of my favorite words is aspiring, because I believe as human beings, we're always aspiring to learn more, to expand, and to discover and be curious, right? And so originally my full business name is Aspiring Life Consulting. But if you're out there in the world looking for me, you're going to find me under Thriving Life Collective and Thriving Life Co. And that's because, as I've had a very similar journey to you, Cindy, like I had these hopes and dreams, being married, having children, and then that unfolded differently to what I expected. And I always had this drive inside of me to learn more. So no matter what life brought my way, I could continue to thrive. And
Mm,
I realized that that is a commonality between all of us as humans. right? Humans are driven to thrive, to go beyond surviving. And what's the other commonality? We all share our breath. We all share that energy that exists in all living things. And so those connections came together for me when I created my business. So yeah, looking back, it's amazing because I went into teaching and I love my career as an early childhood educator. I still do it today. I'm very lucky to have moved into like doing it through my own business. But I know that there's more to that because when we're working with our children, we're imparting an energy on them and we're helping them to understand their own energy and how to really embrace their own individuality. And then I love doing that now also with teachers and with students in schools because there's always so much going on for our school communities. So that's really, where it's come through to is that I'm still a teacher at heart. I think we all, when you're a teacher, you really are a teacher at heart.
Mhm.
But what it's done for me is my journey has given me so many opportunities and challenges, right? Life has sometimes been challenging, but instead of choosing to struggle with it, I'm learning to embrace it as invitations to be able to learn new ways and skills that we can really help that energy move through our bodies and expand into a better version of ourselves. So yeah, there's so many pieces that I'm excited to discuss with you today
I'm
about
just
how
writing
I
all
do that.
those things down.
It's incredible. I know when we've been talking over the few years that we've known each other, there's been my experience of experiencing Reiki through you. And then I was introduced to essential oils years ago, which is another beautiful component that helps our bodies to process emotions and support all of our bodies, right? Our physical, mental, emotional, energetic bodies, and our cognitive bodies, because we have all of those things working together.
Mhm.
So part of my business was, okay, I want to get these tools out to people and these techniques, right? So the oils was one piece. I'd always done meditation and yoga. Okay, that was another piece. There were all these different pieces of the puzzle. But about through 2.5 years ago, I realized something was missing. There was like an interlocking piece that was missing. And that for me was when I was introduced to emotional freedom technique or EFT tapping, where we
Oh,
are
it's
actually
called what?
combining the two things, right? The physical tapping on our bodies and the speaking through our limiting beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves, so that we can actually process our experiences and then have that space for growth. So it became that interlocking piece. So now when you look at Thriving Life Co, you'll be like, there's so much going on, but every single piece of the puzzle plays a very important part in your development and your journey to living your thriving life.
I like that. I was wondering when I just went, oh, it's called what? Because I've always heard it called tapping, but I didn't when you just said emotional freedom
Breathing technique.
technique.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that
So
is the
go ahead.
biggest. No, I think that's actually hearing those words, emotional freedom technique. That's so, and you and I we've done some lives on it. I've read some books on it. It is such an interesting technique. And you can go into it. I just know when I've done it for myself, that immediate sensation within you.
That's right. Because there's that immediate connection with our nervous system. So it's like I was saying before, as humans, and actually, well, all living things, right? Even animals, we all have a nervous system. And that nervous system is our stress system, right? It's how we deal with stress.
Mhm.
And so we have two parts to that system. And those two parts, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic is when you know that feeling physically in your body or mentally in your brain, and emotionally, you have things come up in your body where you freeze or you flee or you even as so far as faint, right? That's the body responding to the stress, telling you you're not safe. Well, how do we shift into a space? How do we shift our energy and our experiences into a space where we do feel safe, where we can feel seen and heard and supported so that our bodies can respond instead of react? And that's why this work I feel is so crucial, because with children, especially, if we can give them tools and techniques early on in life, it's going to save them the struggle of moving through different experiences, some traumatic, as they grow. And also for adults who have already grown up and haven't had these techniques and these tools, we can work backwards and we can process things that have happened to us even before we were born. And it's amazing. It's just like your work with Reiki and everything that we do. it's a way of moving those energies through our body so our body is clear. And so we can really have a deeper sense, a deeper understanding of what's going on around us and what's going on within us. So that emotional freedom technique, I think the words are so powerful. Again, back to the words, because we are emotional, we have emotional bodies. We are emotional beings. There's all the science has been done, even with animals, how they experience emotions and connection. And with those emotions, we don't want to be free of them. They help us to understand what we're going through. But what we do want to have is an experience of freedom within them, right? We can be sad and we can also be joyful at the same time. There's going to be times in life where you're going to be like, I don't understand. I'm feeling joyful, but I'm also sad because something's changing. I mean, you may have experienced that when you left your job of 17 years. That job brought you so much, but you also had so much to look forward to. And those contrasts, we can struggle with those as humans. We don't know if we're supposed to feel these ways, but what if we could have a framework of understanding? Tapping helps us do that.
I like that. It's that feeling of always being in duality, right? And understanding duality so that you can acknowledge that you're going to be. I say that for people when the biggest thing that comes up for me was when I gave birth to my child, that I grieved that he would no longer, the child that was within me. I loved, and some people don't understand this, but I loved being pregnant. And so when he was born, I actually had to grieve the child that I had inside, if that makes sense, because he was here, but what about the one that was in me? And so it was this, I had this one, but where was that one? And so I had a really hard time of that. So I always say it's duality. That was my biggest one that I could get, because I know that people always love this new baby, but I couldn't grasp the two together. And so really understanding that it's okay to feel joy and sadness at the same time, and to be okay with both those feelings. So I really like what you're saying. I think that we don't always acknowledge it.
No, we don't. And it's really interesting because in our experience as humans, there's a few things that are really limited about our beliefs. Though there's the stories we tell ourselves, there's the emotional literacy around them, how we name our emotions. I mean, there are several different types of happiness. There's several different experiences of sadness, of anger. But when you think of our work with children, we might quickly say, oh, you must be angry. You must be frustrated. And they're like, well, no, I'm confused. And you're like, oh, how do you get from that to that? And I think what's interesting is in our bodies, when we're born, even we have stories in our bodies, right? We have the stories that have been filtered into our bodies through our birth experience and through being in utero. We know that babies absorb things through us when they're in us.
Yes.
And then there's even science today showing that we actually hold things from 7 generations back, right? Because it's passed down in our DNA and in through the eggs of our mothers. So it's really interesting to me that if we can hold space for a little bit more curiosity when we're exploring those emotional experiences, to not be so quick to judge them, box them, and create an understanding of them, but to actually just explore them and hold space for them. And what I love is with tapping, and I mean, I'll use a personal example myself. When I was doing my training, and my instructor said to me, I want you to throw out there an example out there, something from your childhood that happened, so we can just tap on it, just to practice. And tapping, for those of you who haven't done it, it's a combination of using your acupressure points. So you're actually tapping gently with your fingertips, or some of my kids that I work with like to rub them because of their sensory issues. And that works well too. It's just making that contact. But speaking out loud your experiences, your stories, your feelings, your limiting beliefs. There's something that happens within our bodies and within our minds when we actually speak. Our bodies are having a conversation with us, and it gives them an opportunity to process. So we've got different tapping points. We use those, and I'm tapping away about an experience that I had with my dad. It was a comment he made when I was about 15 about something I was wearing as I was heading out the door. And I thought as a teenager, I had brushed it off. I thought I had just let it go. But as I was tapping, it was so interesting to me what was coming up. I could feel this feeling in my gut, like a heaviness and a tightness in my throat. And then I was like, different words were coming into my brains. And I was like, but that's not what he said. I know what he said, but those were the feelings I had held on to about it. And
Mm.
I suddenly was able to explore how they impacted everything moving forward. Now that I've been able to hold space for that and release it, it no longer impacts me. And we're talking, I'm about to turn 49. So that's a long time to carry around a off the cuff comment from
Mhm.
another person. But we do that as humans
Right.
and we add it to our stories. Our bodies have this way of absorbing other people's energy. And you'll understand that as a Reiki practitioner. I mean, we've got energy going on all around us, and energy is not created and destroyed. It just moves. So
Mhm.
it wants to go somewhere. And so if we've absorbed energy, how can we process it? And that's what
Right.
I love with the work that I do, is that I get to hold space for people. We get to get curious about the idea of moving from surviving to thriving, right?
Mhm.
Creating that clarity that brings that confidence and that joy into your everyday life and your everyday experiences. But we do it in a way that is really gentle and really like loving kindness. We need more of that in the world. And it's
Yes.
something I don't do enough of for myself. Of all the experiences I've gone through, I'm realizing I'm learning right along with my clients, right along with the kids that I work with, all the way through to the teachers that I support, and the school programming that I'm trying to create, where it's like spaces where we can have permission to just really
Mhm.
be curious and just really explore how we can move through things in a way that is actually going to help us to, like I keep saying, thrive.
And so now you're saying you're doing this work with students and with teachers. So how does that look? What are these programs looking like?
Yeah, so it's interesting when I first came to it, and I mean, I think so many of us as energy workers, light workers, whatever, however you want to frame us, teachers, we always have like, we want to help everybody. That's one of the things it seems to me, is that we want to help everybody. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because I used to hold that against myself, that I felt so scattered. I wanted to collect all the tools. And then through our dear friend, Jessica Serrato, I figured out that I was a ruling number 10. And that apparently is just part of the framework. Again, greater framework of understanding, right?
Yes.
So again, there's another tool for me. I pull the numerology into my work. And so she helped me, and my other dear friend Angie helped me, who's a fellow EFT tapping coach, helped me understand that if I could help anyone, where is going to have the greatest impact and influence, and who do I understand? Well, I understand teachers. I just spent the last almost 9 years working for the school district. I understood more about the classroom experience, even though I was an early childhood teacher running an early childhood program. I
Mhm.
saw what the teachers were dealing with. I helped support students all the way through to grade 7. And I could see the gaps that were happening in our school system, where in high school, we know that teenagers struggle. We know they have so much emotional experience. We put a lot of resources in that. But I was hearing that in the elementary school system, they'll get there. They'll learn it eventually. They don't need to learn it yet. They don't need mental health literacy, emotional literacy. It's okay. We just need to concentrate on the math, the science, and getting them ready to get out the door. But that's a system that was created back in the Industrial Revolution, in a society where we didn't know about children's emotional capacity and how vital it was, so they could be really thriving adults and humans. And I realized I needed to change things. Like, I wanted to change things. So I thought, okay, if I can support teachers,
Yeah.
first of all, I wanted to support students. And then, of course, we all know what happened 2 years ago. Schools shut down. You couldn't just go in and run programs in the classrooms. I have a beautiful program called Back to Breath, where I'm endeavoring to go in and work with classrooms to be able to give the tools and techniques, those toolkits, to the classrooms, so
Mhm.
that when kids are experiencing stress and overwhelm, when the teacher is experiencing all the energies of their class coming together in a maybe a fractious way, they can use their meditations, they can use their breathing techniques, they can use some tapping, down to
Right.
even tapping on their fingers under their
I
desks
love that.
to help
Yes.
calm their nervous systems, right? Amazing how little movements can
It.
calm our nervous system, shift it from sympathetic to parasympathetic, get us back and centered and grounded, get our energy grounded, our minds clear.
Mhm.
And then the kids can really, we can support the children better.
Mhm.
So when school shut down, it was my dear friend Angie who said, what about the teachers? If you're supporting the teachers who you understand so much, and that filters down, you get that beautiful ripple effect. because then the teachers are supporting the kids
Yeah.
because they're feeling better about themselves. They're feeling clear. They're feeling more confidence and more joy in this really challenging time. And then those kids are going home and they're taking it home to their families. So instead of me having to be in all the places and doing all the things, where can I have the most impact with one drop in the bucket, that one, like that pebble, and then have that ripple effect? So now what I endeavor to do between the Back to Breath program that I have, and I have my own teachers membership, where we have a beautiful group of teachers that's always expanding, coming together throughout the month, doing different wellness sessions, tapping. Soul Spark coaching is something we do once a month where we work specifically on their own goals as a human. So it's so interesting to me. We came together as teachers. I now have a teacher who has embraced her lifelong desire to be a hypnotherapist, which I know, funny enough, you had a
Yeah.
hypnotherapist on the show last time. And she has now shifted out of teaching to be able to become a hypnotherapist and has just been certified. I've watched other teachers go from sadly feeling like they hated teaching. They hated all the obligations, all the stress, and how they couldn't step into being the teacher that they truly felt they needed to being able to do that because they got to know themselves better through the work we did together. They learned
Wow.
to embrace who they were. They learned, as you said in your overview about your second season, how to say yes to themselves. Imagine if we could all say yes to ourselves. Imagine if our kids learned from an early age their magic is different and they can say yes to it. And it can work in beautiful cohesion with other magics and other energies. Not, these are the stories I used to get in school. She talks too much. She would do better if she was quieter. Maybe she should sit in the hallway to do her work, to get her work done. All of the stories that I kept telling myself as I grew up that I'd heard from these teachers.
Yeah.
Not me, they weren't mean teachers. They just didn't know better. But now that we know better, I want us to do better.
Yes. Oh, that's so, it is. I mean, and again, I'm going to cry on every single podcast. But
We're emotional beings, honey.
you know what? Because I feel myself as a child and I didn't do well in the school system. Because it wasn't my place. I did very well with friends, but I didn't succeed because I was the child who would, oh my gosh, I need to tap.
And then, and tapping and just for those of you who are just listening, I'm showing Cindy how she can just tap on the collarbone point right below your collarbone. And that's a really beautiful spot, especially for women, because we carry a lot of anger in our hips, and this spot connects to our hips. Funny enough, our hips connected to birth. So just tapping as you talk and allowing yourself that expression, love. It's such a beautiful thing. This is the work. Right?
You see, I don't even think I really realized, oh, I'll hold my collarbone. I can reflect back and I'll be vulnerable on this podcast. I remember being in school and we'd have to read out loud and I would count how many paragraphs till it was my turn. And I would never listen. I would just read my paragraph over and over to make sure I would get it right, because I was so scared that I wouldn't know how to read and all the other students were there, and how scary that would be. Like, okay, it's going to be my turn. I'm going to have to read out loud. And I think how we don't think about all the things for each one of those students, and that they're all sitting there and they have to fit into one type. It's structured for one type of personality. And if we can open it to go, there's so many types of personalities all there. I just hope the same thing. And I love what you're creating. I have a vision for myself as well, to allow children to be uniquely them and supported. I want all of us as individuals to excel and feel safe. And sorry, I just had that moment. I don't need to say
sorry. I never want anyone to ever feel like they have to apologize for having an emotional moment, because emotion, the word itself, emotion, it's energy in motion.
In motion.
It's energy in motion. And that's the energy. And when we get those energetic blocks, when we hold on to those memories and those stories in our bodies, that's where we get disease. It's literally dis-ease in our bodies.
Yes.
But if we are able to process them in a healthy way and hold space for them and hold space for each other, because
Yes.
what you just said about, we know as early childhood professionals, there's 7 different types of learners,
Yeah.
but there are so many other factors that come into that. Because
Yeah.
when we talk about the numerology piece, which is another piece that I still use because I use it as my basis. When you know your ruling number and you know all the different numbers that are around you, here's my vision. Imagine if a teacher could take the birth dates of every child in their class and simply calculate their ruling number and
Yeah.
kind of have a little understanding of the challenges, the empowering side and the disempowering sides that those numbers experience. Greater framework of understanding when you have 18 kids sitting in front of you
Yeah.
and you know, right? Or the kids could learn how to calculate the universal day energy and they'll go, okay, day 1, like this is a great day to learn new things. Day 9, not such a good day to learn new things. We want to wrap things up. What if we
Yes.
could just get curious about a different way of approaching education? We can
Yeah.
still do the math, the science, the reading, the band, all those things, but do it in a way that really supports everything that we know is going on and
Yes.
going on for these kids and for ourselves.
For
Because
yourself.
teachers are walking into classrooms. I'm hearing from teachers right now that this school year is more stressful than last year because their message that they're receiving from the higher up is the kids are behind, we've lost time, we
Yeah.
need to triple speed it to make up for it.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. What if our children aren't feeling safe and secure? Because at home, their families are struggling to pay the bills and their families are struggling to find a sense of well being, or someone's just lost their job, or they're having to shift. We've had so many shifts, major shifts in life. We need to pause. And that's what tapping and all these tools do. It gives us a chance to pause and to find space for a response, like a really healthy, gentle response instead of a push, right? Up against something. And
I
so I
agree.
love that you shared that because that's a beautiful thing. To be vulnerable like that is so hard. It's
Well,
so hard.
but thank you. But I think that you bring that out. And I think that the more we could do that, I look at myself now, having had numerology and you saying, yes, you're the ruling 10. I am not a ruling 10, but no, being much more aware of myself now, knowing my strengths and knowing what my I don't even want to call it a weakness, just knowing what my not my strengths are. Um,
Challenges,
yeah,
your
yeah,
learnings,
my
right? Your
learning.
lessons.
I know from myself, this is why I feel like I've been able to propel myself much further now. So I know what I need to ask help for. I know where I need to get support. And so I am able to go, you know what? Today's not going to be a good day for me to do this. Today's not going to be a good day for me to do this. I know exactly where I need to be. And for so many years, I felt like I was failing because I didn't do the things I thought society meant
Expected.
success for.
Yep.
And so when I finally went, I am actually so successful because I can do so well. This is the way I'm gifted. So if I exercise my brain to work this way, there's not many people who actually can do it the way mine can. And so that's the way I'll work it. And there's not many people that will do it exactly the way Merediths can. So if she exercises it that way, she can go. Do you know what I mean?
And I can inspire others to realize we all have our different learning styles. I call them
Yeah.
learning distinctions when I work with my students.
Mm,
Right?
good.
I still, because I'm still teaching, I have my early childhood program in the outdoors, and then I have my grade 3s and 5s that I support in the outdoors.
Yes.
And when the grade 3s and 5s, especially with their registration forms last year for grade 2 and 4, I asked the parents, what are their learning distinctions? Because we all have them, whether
Yes.
it be something through to an IEP and a diagnosis, through to just curious ways of learning. I'm
Mhm.
more of a visual learner. If you try to read something to me, I'm not going to absorb it as much as if I see the words on the page and experience it.
Right.
So when we know that about each other,
Mhm.
imagine how much more flow there could be in the world and how much more understanding for, again, that duality, that it doesn't have to be one or the other. There's
Yes.
children who thrive in four walls. There's other children who thrive in the outdoors. There's other children who thrive with the balance. Can we
Mhm.
create that for them? Can we just accept that change is actually a good thing? It doesn't mean that we failed,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't mean that it was wrong the way we were doing it. We just are finding new and improved ways of doing it and of being more than doing. I really
Being.
try to shift into the word being, right? Because that's
Love.
what we are. We're not human doings,
We're human beings.
we're
Yeah.
human beings.
Yeah.
And, you know, I keep coming back to like, whenever in my experience in life, whenever I was really stressed and I would hear from people would say, just take a breath. Don't be so stressed. Don't be so emotional. The minute we stop and we go, okay, I need to find space to take a breath, just to understand, to kind of hear what's going on for my body. When we can do that for children and we can do that for other adults, it's giving ourselves permission to just kind of unfold instead of expecting, like you said, society's expectations, our expectations about how life is going to be. Because when we come up against those expectations, that's when things do become a struggle. And if we can just go, oh, well, I'm this, I have these energies. And we know with, like, say, our numerology, it was pre-written, it's dates, it's Pythagoras, it's mathematical science, right? There is no denying it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, now I'm not wrong for wanting to collect all these different tools. I really thrive because I then can share them with others. And then whatever lands with you, you can use, you can run with, right?
Yes.
Because everybody's different. Some people don't like to tap, or they like to rub their collarbone point instead of tapping it, or they like to just talk inside their heads instead of talking. Okay, great. Go with it.
Yes.
Whatever works.
Yes. And like you said, I love the idea that you have kept going to know that whatever tools, like I call it my magic hat, and whatever I need to pull out, I'll just pull out. But it's like, I know from myself, this isn't where I stop. Like, I'm not going to stop today and be like, well, my magic hat's full, so I'm done. And now I've gone on, doing emotion code now, which is similar, right? So emotion code is understanding that we have these trapped emotions within us and working with your subconscious to release them.
That's right.
And so it's just
It works hand in
it-
hand with tapping all the time. Emotion code. It's
100%.
amazing.
Yes. And so that's just it's another similar way of doing it. And now I'm doing the second layer to do body code, and it's incredible work. And so I've just found, and who knows, I think another modality will open up to me at some point too. And that's what I love, is
Yeah.
that we are such energy.
Well, and I think this is just it. When we stop to recognize that no matter what we look like from the outside and no matter what experiences we seem to be moving through, we are all energy, and
Mhm.
everything that we encounter is energy. And so if we can have a better understanding of how our energy is functioning from day to day,
Yes.
and then when we move through our journey, instead of continuing to tell ourselves judgmental stories and limiting beliefs, we can go, oh, okay, well, you know what? Today is obviously a day where I'm meant to move slower. And it's so interesting to me. This is the part I find most curious. So, an example is when I was teaching, when I teach my Wednesday program with my older students, and we're in the outdoors. So, we're in all conditions, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago, we were in that atmospheric river out in Deep Cove, and it was like interesting. And my dog, my 10-month-old dog, comes with me on Wednesdays too, because she's wonderful with the students. So there she is. We've got her energy, we've got the energy of these 7 students, all very different humans, and it just flowed. It was like you wouldn't know it. It would just went so beautifully. Then we'll have a day that's beautiful, bright, and sunny, and you expect it all to go well, and everybody's coming against each other.
Hmm.
Well, if I stop and I consider the universal day energy and I think, oh, okay, so there's this, and I know this about my students, and I know this is going on for them right now. Oh, here's how I can shift. And it's like a river. I always bring it back to a river. When a river hits a barrier, it doesn't try to push through it all the time. It'll find its easiest way around it, that ease and spaciousness, right?
Mhm.
So much of the work that I do is based around like my two feelings that I always want to be like checking in with and creating in life are ease and spaciousness. Because for 20 years I have raised 2 children, one of them, my youngest, completely solo, and it's like, oh my, right? Like I've got enough challenge in my life. So for the rest of things, we need some ease and spaciousness. So I always encourage the people I work with to find those feelings and use those kind of as your compass points. If something you're doing isn't checking in with this point, how can you adjust your path ever so slightly or adjust your approach like a river so that it feels like you have that flow. The minute we do that, like you were saying, everything lines up for you.
Mhm.
Suddenly you get a call going, would you like a job? And you're like, how did that come out? Well, that's because you were doing all the work over here, right? You were staying in line with your integrity, staying in line with who you knew you to be,
Mhm.
celebrating your magic, embracing your individuality.
Mhm.
And then all the energy comes together to support that,
Right.
right? And that's the thing. That's what it comes down to. No matter what framework we look at, it all comes down to the energy.
Mhm.
So it's a
I love
beautiful thing.
I love that because I think and it's one of those, thank you, because I think one of those, the hardest things for us to do is we want to force, and it's not out of ill intent, but it's like we're trying so hard to make it work. And it's in those moments where, and people will say, just let go. And everyone's like, well, how do I let
If I
go?
let go, I'm going
Go
to lose. I'm not
loose.
going to seem successful. I'm
Yes,
not doing enough. I'm
yes,
not, what are those words that everybody uses with entrepreneurship? That we need to hustle,
yes.
that we need to push, that we need to this. You know what? I don't even believe I need to sell my services.
No.
I mean, most of my students that I've gotten from my program have come from word of mouth.
Mhm.
It's like people feel it.
Mhm.
We're human beings, and I said this before. We have feelings, right? We're not just doers. Because the thing is that in moments where we go, okay, I need to rest. That rest is so productive
Mhm.
because that's when, I mean, a lot of the times, like if I'm going for a run, that's when my best ideas come up. When I'm literally out running in the trails, which is like my favorite way to burn off steam or to just escape or just, feel good and like work my body because I'm a very physical like expression when it comes to my numbers. That's when my ideas come through. Should I be at home sitting in front of my computer working away on things? For some people that might work. So for
But that's
me
your
going
great
for a
form
run,
of meditation, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's I think, like I've tried to say to people, is that there's not one form of meditation. An
that's right.
active meditation can be so great, like going out for a run. For you,
Going for a
that's your
walk.
channel.
Yep.
Going for a walk, you're getting everything you need. So it's
That's right.
beautiful.
Depending on your energy, and if you
Yeah.
understand where your energies lie, and that's why I always like, so just like to kind of all those pieces and bring them together. When I work with people, and even when I work with children, right? I mean, some of the children that I work with privately, I always start with their chart. I always start with their numbers. And I always encourage the families that I'm working for to also have their charts done because those energies intersect. And it's so interesting the understandings that then can come. So when they're supporting their child, they can start from a place of understanding themselves. And then after we do their chart, we look at the challenges that come up. We look at the limiting beliefs. We look at the stories they're telling themselves, the behavioral challenges. Then does tapping work? What oils might work? What breathing? What playful activities? I mean, so much of my work is play based because it's with children and also adults.
Mhm. Oh, it
You
has,
you showed us that with your magic wand. I mean, oh my gosh, if I could sport a tutu like Cindy does, I would.
you
You
can,
know, I
you
I know
can.
I need to come to one of these tutu parties because I'll tell you what, I think this is the thing we need to get back to that. I mean, that's one of my things moving into the new year. I'm about to celebrate my birthday, and my birthday for me is my new year. I always use that time around then to choose a new word for the year, to really tune myself into what I want to create. And I know that for part of me, it is playfulness. Like it's been deep in this year, it's been a lot of work, but it's time to get lighter and to get playful.
So good. I always say to people, if it's your birthday, I do this for my children and my nieces and for myself. We always go out for our birthday. We've done it for at least 10 years. We call it the napkin list. And you pull a napkin out for yourself. We go to a restaurant. I've got one right here. I can't, it's under my table. But it's your napkin goals. And so it's your goals for your new year.
And it
And it's
has to
your
fit on a
birthday.
napkin,
It
and it's
has to be on a
easy. It's not
napkin,
overwhelming.
not overwhelming, and
Exactly.
it's so fun. And you have to do like so it's a fun goal for yourself. It has to be, and you're not thinking too hard. So as soon as you start to think too hard, then you're not. So it's like, so for my nieces and I, it's to bungee jump this year.
Ooh, I love it.
um so we'll see if you do it, but these are the kind of things. And like it can be things like really like concrete things, like I want to maybe do my laundry.
I desire to feel more spaciousness with my laundry, right? Like that would be
There,
the
like
way.
those
Yeah,
are the things. So for
I know.
you could think of something really like if playfulness is something, I mean, I feel like you're so playful, but for yourself, if that's something, so you get your napkin list and then you just have it and it sits right here, it just fell down. But
Yeah, I love this idea of a napkin list. I always, with kids, when I'm trying to get them to work with journaling, or even adults, because journaling is so overwhelming, we start with a
yeah,
postcard. Write a postcard to yourself.
yeah,
Postcards are always so much fun and they're sweet, and you can choose one with a picture on it or draw your own picture. And I
yeah,
love that, right? So you make it inviting, you make it easy, you make it
easy.
light, right?
Yes. Not
And and yeah, playfulness. I mean, I have to say, I think when you say those things too, I know for me this year, out loud, I was like, I really want to return to Manning Park. It's a magical place for me. Haven't been there since I was a teenager. Literally, spur of the moment in September, Friday afternoon, let's go. We're going to Manning Park. Let's see if we can find a campsite. We're done. I just did it. And then I suddenly went, wait, 6 months ago, I said I wanted to go to Manning Park. Right. And it's so funny because it was it may seem simple to some, but to
no.
me, it was me and my kid and our dog. And it was like,
Oh,
okay, throw some gear in the car, let's go. And it's so funny because it fulfills so much more. That one simple act fulfills so much more and drives us. It propels us towards so much more. So when we choose to do this work, right, every day, it propels us further and further. It's amazing how fast life starts to happen
yeah.
for us.
Yes.
And I think both, you know, I know for me as a single mom, I had to work through, okay, how did this happen? How in the world did I end up here? And being really hard on myself too, going, wait a minute, look at everything that I've created. I mean, I have one that is about to be 21. I think of that and I go, wow, like
We were
it's,
20.
yeah, we were in our 20s. Like, how is it that I've got one that's about to go off to Capilano or like do her thing? Like, I mean, this is the thing. So I think it's a beautiful thing if we can, like, I love to hold space for all my people so that they really have that sensation that no matter what comes their way, you really have a choice and you need the space to create that choice. And so I want to make sure that I always love coming back to this one quote
Yes, let's
by
say
Viktor Frankl.
okay.
And for those of you who don't know who Viktor Frankl was, he is an Auschwitz survivor. He is he's not a neurophysicist, he's a neuropsychologist, a psychiatrist, one of these terms, these scientific terms. But here's what I love about Viktor Frankl. He came through one of the most challenging experiences anybody could come through as a human, and he chose. And his quote, and I won't say it exactly right, but it's on my website because it's the center of my work. And it is that between stimulus and response, there's a space. And it's within that space that there's a choice, right? And it's in that choice that we find our freedom and our growth. And the thing is, in our society, we don't grant ourselves or our children those spaces. We're so busy pushing and doing. When did we get to the point where we couldn't press pause and just come back inside of ourselves and go, okay, things are happening. I don't really understand them. Something's going on. I need to take some time. I need to take some space. Because then when I move forward, I'm moving forward with that clarity, right? That this is coming from here, from this heart space. This is coming from trusting my gut. And then, yes, there's all this up here that does us well. Our mental bodies serve us, but we also know there's a lot of noise up there too. So if we could come back and create those spaces so that people can move forward with just a clear response, right? And really feel honored, like they're honoring their own energy. It'll be a better world. That's all
So that is so good. And I
yeah.
love that. I
Yep.
um because I think that's the truest thing. I always say to go into the void. If we can have just some moments where we can just go into the void, we don't like to go into that space, but just
And
thank
just be
you.
curious about it. Don't be fearful of it. I mean, fear serves a purpose, right?
Yes.
We can say, okay, fear, yeah. And that's the thing with tapping, holding that space for the duality. Even though I'm feeling some fear in my body, I can feel curious too. Even though I'm feeling sad in my body, I can choose to look at what it would feel like to choose happy or choose anything else, right? like just to kind of just see things from the other side. It doesn't mean you have to. It's just a choice to. So,
percent.
yeah, beautiful
Oh,
spaces, right? Beautiful, beautiful spaces. And our bodies need it, all of our bodies. So I'm really hoping that this is the year to get out there. And I mean, little secret, this is my goal is, I mean, everyone looks at me and goes, oh, you're a teacher and you have all these great programs. Well, my goal is to actually change the school system.
I love it.
This is the thing. I
This
want
needs to
these
be on your
wellness
napkin.
practices. I want these wellness practices to be integral.
I
They need
love
to be
it.
as integral as math and science and English and all the other things. Because if we're putting these children out into the world and the world is changing, they need to be humans who really honor themselves and know themselves as much as they know all the facts about the world, if not more.
This, I have inspired and amazing. Thank you.
And it all started with some oils.
I know. I know, Meredith. So for
Oils.
those who know, Meredith put a passion
Blend.
essential blend,
Inspiration blend on.
inspiration blend on her throat. And it was the neatest thing because you put it on. I'm over here on my Zoom and I could taste it in mine.
And you're describing spicy to me. And I'm like, how did you know there was cardamom and ginger in there? Like, I don't know.
I taste ginger.
Again, a whole other level of knowing. That's our intuitive
All the
bodies.
knowing. I know. I was like, I
Intuitive
taste.
bodies.
I know. I was like, I've never, I'm like, it's not flour. I can taste ginger in my mouth and some spice. I
And
love
even though you thought it was rose because of the label, because of the pink of the
Yes.
label. And I know, isn't that interesting? Our bodies know. And when we can create those spaces to allow those knowings to rise up,
I know.
oh, some magical things can happen.
I know. I just, these are all the things, right? The intuitive knowing. I love it. I'm like, wait a minute. I am tasting what you've just put on your body.
crazy stuff, but not crazy.
But not crazy.
It's just coming back to those original knowings, right? So
Meredith, where can people find you? I'm going to put it into the actual thing, but just say it.
Fabulous. Okay. So my website is Thriving Life Co.
Okay.
On Instagram, I'm Aspiring Thriver. Currently, my teacher membership is a private Facebook group known as Thriving Life Collective Membership. However, given some of the challenges that we've encountered recently with that platform, I am looking to shift it into a different platform, but you can reach out to me. And my email is aspiringlifeconsulting@gmail.com. So you can reach out to me in so many different ways. And if you're a teacher, and you want to get curious about what the membership is about, it's a really beautiful space where we kind of incorporate all modalities and really just have a really nice common understanding for each other's experiences. And then, of course, my Back to Breath program, if you're interested in bringing it into your schools, you can contact me because then I can come and talk to your parent ed night, to your PAC groups, because a lot of the PACs fund them. And so it's really beautiful because it comes from the funding that is there to support the classroom teachers. And then, of course, I've got my programs, my outdoor programs, and those are all up there on my website as well. So,
yeah, thank
all
you.
the things, right?
That is fantastic. And my very last question, because I always do it, and I know we're time, but I want to know, what is your favorite cup of bliss?
Oh, my favorite cup of bliss. My goodness. You know, I would have to say probably, I do drink coffee every morning, but I do love a good chai tea latte.
Ooh,
There is something
nobody said that.
spices, you know, it's just chai tea lattes, all the different flavors. You can have it sweet, you can have it not. I love the options, and always with oat milk, because oat milk is my magic. It lets my body thrive. So
Everyone's saying oat milk now. I gotta get onto
makes
this.
all the difference to my breathing system, to my respiratory system, and it's apparently the most environmentally friendly milk. So hey, why not?
This
Why
is
not?
good. This is
Creamy
good.
and yet not too much. So yes, I would have to say probably, if we're going to go that way, a chai tea latte, because especially on a day like a West Coast weather day.
That is so good. Okay, I've got all these notes here. This is so good.
Wonderful. I love our
thank
chats.
you.
Always.
Thank you. I feel like I've had a good cry. I've released. I've done some tapping.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Meredith.
My pleasure. I look forward to hearing from everyone.